Good evening, everybody. How's everything? Is everything under control? We are going to be talking tonight about science and religion and how Spiritism plays a role as a bridge between those what we have been calling extremes, right? To understand this process of separation that happened between religion and science, we need to go back to the French Revolution. The French Revolution was a very important, a pivot moment in history. Europe was going through a process of enlightenment, also known as Illuminism. And through the process of the French Revolution, the King of France was kicked away from the throne. And after that, what happened? One of the foundations of keeping the king as a king was the backbone of being a divine master, right? That was the king was basically it was a master that have the role of take care of the country. So it was a divine role. With the French Revolution, this idea, this concept of being divine was taken away, you know? So as human beings that we are, what happened during this time? Immediately, with the Illuminism, the Enlightenment process that Europe was going through, what happened was the science took over, the rational thinking process took over, and at the same time, anything related to religion, dogmas, whatever, was just put aside. The materialism was really getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The concept of God, the concept of love, this was put aside because now the predominant idea was the materialism. Not coincident, the Spiritism started at that exactly time because came as, according to the spiritual world, as an answer to this change that humanity was going through. The materialism was getting really out of control and taking away all the good things that, even though with a lot of mistakes, all the good things that religion was brought as well. It's important for us to understand the difference between religion and religion institutions. Those are two different things. Should be the same, but sometimes not. It's important to understand religion as the body of knowledge, right? A body of knowledge that's going to be connect us to the whole. In a nutshell, if we see as a body of knowledge, we will see that within Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, all the religion has this core, which is basically guidelines for us to reconnect with this whole through morality, through love, right? So this is the core of every single religion. But religion institutions are a lot of people who get together, start following our religion, and get corrupted along the way, and use religion as a tool to manipulate mass, to exacerbate power. Is that clear, the difference? So religion is one thing, religion institutions is another thing. So it's important to understand that because Spiritism plays a very important role in that matter, because it's totally okay to question the religion beliefs, because the religion beliefs are interpreted by human beings who are corrupted sometimes. And this is very important as Spiritism as we are going to see it. So After the French Revolution, for example, the idea of science got stronger, and the spiritual side, which religions included, the spiritual was put a little aside. So one start denying the other one. And this is very common for us human beings. We love the extremes, right? We don't see the gray area. And basically all the answers are in the gray area. But when we see in duality, in binary way like 1 and 0, we start denying everything. And the Spiritism is basically this bridge. Because the foundation of the Spiritism are based in 3 pillars, which are religion, science, and philosophy, right? And this is very important for us to understand. Why? Because those are the 3 foundations of Spiritism. And the Spiritism has religion as foundation. As I explained, religion is pure raw body of knowledge that guide us to get to know ourselves and get connected with everything. That's the foundation of Spiritism. Not a dogma-based religion. So this is extremely important for us to understand, because this is going to go after, be okay with the science method that Spiritism is. To understand the scientific process of a Spiritism, how it was created, I need to explain how Allan Kardec basically compiled the Spiritist book. In a nutshell, it was like that. He was invited in 19th century. There was a time that there were a lot of spiritual phenomena, right? Gappings and knockings, a lot of things that was happening. People were really curious, and they start getting together to have fun. Oh, there is a table over there that is for questions. And then the people are like, oh, okay, let's get together and ask some questions. And they were asking very important questions to their tables, like, am I going to get married? Am I going to find a girl or a boy or something like that? Very philosophical ones, right? Because it was just entertainment. And Allan Kardec had a friend who invited him to go to one of the seers. Allan Kardec was denied once, twice, and say, no, I'm going to go there anyway. So when he saw all these phenomena happening, he was like, okay, that's weird. A table answering questions? It doesn't make sense. So he started digging. Pay attention to this, because at the very beginning, Allan Kardec, it was his real name. Allan Kardec is the pen name. His real name is Hippolyte Denisard Rivel. When Hippolyte Denisard Rivel started looking at those phenomena happening, what he was basically applying the first principle of science, which is observation. He was applying this. So he started asking questions. Hey, that's interesting. Let me double check. He got close to the tables to see if somebody was like, doing some frauds or something. He started observing the whole behavior of the tables. And then he was like, okay, that's interesting. Then he created a hypothesis. So the second step, he created a hypothesis. This is the second step of the scientific method, right? And then when he started creating hypotheses, he was like, man, these tables are answering questions in a very specific way. It shows some sort of intelligence. To have intelligence, the source has to have some sort of consciousness, right? To be able to answer this way. So we start creating hypotheses. What is really going on? And then he did a very crucial step that's basically testing. So he observed, he created some hypothesis, and he started testing. And this is a very crucial method, part of the whole methodology, because he found a way to start really arguing the phenomena, what's really going on. And he found ways through mediums to make more efficient the phenomena. And this is very important to understand the universality of the Spiritism, because he started using mediums to go deeper in the questions and answers. And he started asking real questions. But he didn't get stuck in one medium. He decided to use different mediums in different places, including here in the US. And he created a series of questions, and he sent out these questions to all these mediums in different people or places. And remember, they didn't have internet. And to send letters to each other took a while. He sent out all the questions, and then when he received the answers were based the same. And he was like, whoa, that's interesting. That's when he decided to jump to a conclusion. He decided to compile all these questions and answers, and he compiled the book called the Spiritist Book. It's so important to understand the name of the book, because the book of the spirits is not the book of Allan Kardec. It's the book of the spirits. And when he gives this name, it's nice because you see that it's beyond the personality, his personality. And he, to avoid relating his name and give the personality of Hippolyte, Denis Armivel. Thank you. Oh, it's Frank is back. So he basically, he gave himself a pen name called Allan Kardec. There is a history why Allan Kardec, but I'm not going to give you spoil. Do your research, of course. And so, makes sense now why the Spiritism is a science as well. And there is the third pillar, the philosophy. When we see this process, science has been accomplished so many things. We have a field of the quantum physics, right? That basically talks about the micro universe. We have also the other side that's basically astrophysics, that talks about the macro universe. But we have an issue there. Just in the material level, we have an issue, because there is a gap. Those fields is still not connected. The micro and the micro cannot connect yet. There are some laws that it's applicable in the quantum physics that doesn't work in the other side. And the Spiritism, it's very important in this matter, because science has been answering so many questions in a material level, but there are so many questions unanswered. When we think in a material way, so science is the science of the matter, right? When we see only under the perspective of matter, we will always hit a wall. Why? Because we are trapped in the consequence. We are not dealing with the cause. When we start asking philosophical questions, the situation got really weird. Because even though we talk about big bangs, We talk about black holes. We talk about quantum physics, protons. As deep as we go, we are not going to be answering questions like, who are we? Where we come from? What are the rules that really takes care of our society as a whole? What happened after that? Those are philosophical questions that's not answered, cannot be answered through science. But science has the tools to validate what other science, Spiritism as the science of the soul, come up with. Okay? So in reality, Spiritism is showing that the spiritual side and the material side are sides of the same coin. One needs the other one. The science is going to be validating the spiritual side, and the spiritual side, the spiritualism is going to give hints, ideas for the science to keep seeing beyond the material level. Does it make sense? So it's important for us to understand that we should not get stuck in concept. And that's one of the beautiful things in the Spiritism, because the Spiritism, it's a doctrine, it's a body of knowledge that keep us and recommend us to keep ourselves open for the concepts that we are studying to evolve. For example, if we understand love as what we understand today as love and get stuck to this, we are going to be stuck in denying the evolution of the concept of love. We need to be open to understand that what we are seeing right now is just picture out of a movie called Eternity. And that's one of the things that Spiritism, it's always inviting us to approach its own principle with an open mind. It's very important because philosophy is part of the Spiritism. And so you need to keep questioning. And nowadays, it's so important for us to understand the concept of religion and religious institution, because, of course, a lot of us, the Spiritists, we came from other religions like institutions. And we came with a lot of dogmas, way of thinking, and most of the time we start transferring our mindsets to the Spiritism as well. For example, a lot of us think we no longer have saints, right? But now we have mentors. We just replaced the name, right? We no longer have the devil, right? Satan. What we have now? The obsessor, right? We no longer have the paradise. What we have now? The spiritual colonies. And it's important for us to understand that we should let it go, this concept, always respecting our needs. We should not be judging those who live through this concept. It's okay, because in the end, what's the most important thing? To become a better person, right? And when we start passing judgment too much, it's because we are forgetting our own beliefs. So I'm just giving to you guys the idea that we always need to go beyond at our own pace. Do not hurt ourselves. If we need have the idea of God as we used to, God like somebody out there that's taking care of us, it's okay, not big deal. But the Spiritism gives a concept of God that's more in tune with science. What is God? The supreme intelligence, the first cause of everything, according to the Spiritism. The answer, it's amazing, but the question is even better because Allan Kardec shows his scientific method of what is God. He didn't say who is God, didn't he? When he asked what is God, he's basically opened the door to anything. What is can be whatever, can be John, can be Dan, can be anybody or nobody. And this is beautiful because the answer is even better when it says, the Enlightened Spirit says, the first cause, the supreme intelligence, the first cause of everything. So when we see God this way, we understand that God is oneness, right? It's the whole thing. And when we see quantum physics, we see that we are one as a whole. Does it make sense? So it's totally okay with science. When he talks about the first cause of everything, he gives the sense of beginning for our understanding. But God, being the oneness that permeates everything, that's part of us, doesn't have time attached to it. Make sense? When we think this way, what we understand as eternity, when we think of eternity, most of us think as a long time, right? But eternity, in reality, is no time. There's no time. So we are timeless beings because we are God's manifestation. And when we think this way, we come with the idea of consciousness, right? And it's amazing that there is a part of quantum physics right now that they are noticing that when they are observing a phenomena, the observer acts upon the observation. This is quantum physics. And that's exactly the cause behind what we are experiencing, right? And when we study Spiritism, we see Spiritism talking about this as the material level has a cause in a spiritual level. So hence, the spiritual level acts upon the material level and vice versa. And then we start understanding the idea of reincarnation. We start seeing that there is an interaction between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. And even though the first cause is in the spiritual realm, there are some necessities to live through the material realm to elevate the spiritual level. In the Spiritist book, there is a very important question. Not question, it's actually a comment at the very beginning of the book that say, what's the most important realm, the material level of the spiritual one? The answer is the spiritual one. And it develops the answer a little bit. The material level doesn't really need it to exist. This comes with a very important point to be expressed here. When the spiritual level is the cause of everything, the cause of everything, and the creation of the material level, it's a consequence of this cause. Hence, everything that happens here, it starts here. So, what's the most important? How should our life be driven by? Through the spiritual perspective, right? Because if everything starts here, and this is just the consequence, if we fix here, what's going to happen here? We are fixing here. So this whole interaction, the Spiritism explained in a very precise way. The third part of the Spiritist book, there is the law of natures, the spiritual laws, in the third part of the Spiritist book. And basically, they laid out laws that basically manages our spiritual world. And once we start getting tuned with those laws, we automatically act upon the material level. That's why so many spirits, enlightened spirits, came to this earth to remind us what is important. But at the same time, a lot of spirits came to develop this side over here so we can basically connect properly this two sides of the coins. So both sides are important. The Spiritism, it's a reason-based doctrine. So we need to understand that we need to be always questioning, find a pattern within the Spiritist doctrine to avoid fall into dogmas, fall into misconceptions, narratives. This is extremely important. That's why philosophy is crucial. That's why science is so important. That's why religion is the guideline for us to become a better person. When we are talking about quantum physics, and I mentioned that quantum physics has proven that the observer, by observing a phenomenon, it's already acting upon the phenomenon. It shows clearly that science, to evolve to different levels, it requires from the spiritual beings we are a higher moral level. Does it make sense? Because if we are stuck morally, we are going to be stuck physically as well. And we can see this in a very practical way. Even though we know that we should love each other, our religions has been told us that we should love each other. We should build a better world through collaboration, through empathy. We shouldn't do it. We should evolve through wars, through pain. See how stuck we get? But if everything comes from the spiritual level is always pushing us to evolve because it's the nature of the spirits to become enlightened. And the way that this happens is through pain. We inflict pain upon each other, we suffer the consequence, and after a lot of pain, we decide to collaborate. When we see under this perspective, we are going to see that to follow Spiritism, the guidelines of Spiritism, it's a matter of intelligence. Because now we know there is something called, because it's part of the law, something called karma in our level of existence, that our actions has consequence. And when we are smart about how we perform our actions, the consequences are going to be good, right? So this is a matter of intelligence. Nowadays, we are going through some very interesting moments in our lives because it's so easy to get access to so much information, right? That we are able to see so many different perspectives, so many approach to the same theme. And this is awesome. But at the same time, it's very dangerous. Very dangerous. Because if we don't have a very strong foundation, it's very easy for us to be misguided. It's very easy for us to be misguided. It's very easy to get lost, to lose our purpose, to get lost in this whole entertainment thing that is created to make us forget who we are. So, but when we have a strong foundation, we can enjoy everything, but not being contaminated by it. And that's one of the beautiful things about Spiritism, because it's going to be helping you to use science to legitimate what you learn spiritually. You're going to know that the spiritual side is the connection with everything. And this is the foundation that you should always be guiding your action. Because when you do so, everything else is going to be in place. Jesus mentioned this in the gospel when he said, seek first the kingdom of heaven and everything else will come to you. It's amazing when he says that, because it's exactly the whole purpose of the Spiritism. What's the definition of the Spiritist? What is being Spiritist? To be a better version of yourself every day, right? When you become the better version of yourself every day, you already have a purpose. Everything here is just a consequence, natural consequence of your action of being a better person every day. And when you start doing that, we are going to find something very amazing called peace. Happiness is not from this world, because all the happiness that we think of is very temporary. But peace is something that's going to be lasting. It's lasting. You can go through hardships, really difficult moments, but you are at peace. You can cry, but you are at peace. In Buddhism, they have a name called dukkha. It's basically that even in happy moments, there is some sort of sadness, unsatisfaction. You bought a new car, but you have to pay your bills. You know, the installments for the car. You got a son, but you're always concerned about the health of your son. It's always like there's always a layer underneath the happy moment. But when you are at peace, it's when you are able to understand that you are from this world. You know that everything is made for us to fulfill your purpose of being a better person every single time. And when you really rely on this, and you know this, it's not about belief, you know things becomes easier. And then science becomes the tool to legitimate what you are. And it's beautiful because Spiritism gives us all the tools necessary to fill this bridge, to make this bridge as efficient as possible in our level of understanding. But remembering always that Spiritism is a body of knowledge, is a doctrine with 3 foundations. And all of them are important. All of them are important. So the message here is to understand that once we are able to see how Spiritism can change our lives, how Spiritism is able to fill this gap between the spirituality and science. What is really holding us back to have a more meaningful life? What is really holding us back? We already know who we are, where we are going to, what's the purpose of being here. What is holding us back? Thank you so much.